Welcome to Zibakeriz, where I show you how to create beautiful decorated cakes and cupcakes. So I'm going to get into this right away. I've already colored my buttercream and placed them into my piping bags, and these are all of the colors that I used to create these colors. So I got this beautiful green shade using leaf green and a little bit of brown gel food coloring. The burgundy shade was created with some of that red and a little bit of orange as well as some brown. Got this yellowish beige with more yellow and a little bit of brown. The brown buttercream shade is with brown and a little bit of black. And the brownish beige was with a little bit of yellow and a little bit more of that brown, and the white was with white gel food coloring, and that buttercream in the bowl was made with just a little bit of brown. But these are pretty much all of the colors that you need to create these colors. Now I'm going to show you all the piping tips. These are all by Wilton 104, 102, which are petal tips, tip 21 and 18, which are both open star tips, tip number 3 and tip number 2, which are round tips, a petal tip number 81, a leaf tip with number 352, and a grass tip number 233. So these are basically all of the different types of piping tips we're going to be using to decorate all of our cupcakes with. So over here, I'm going to be decorating 6 cupcakes with my decorations, and basically this is everything you're going to need for this cupcake decorating video. So over here, when I show you this cupcake, it has a little bit of this dome on top. So we don't want this dome, otherwise we're not going to get nice flat floral cupcakes. So we're just going to take a sharp knife and kind of just cut the very top of this cupcake using that cupcake liner as a guide to get a nice smooth surface. And you can take this and you can see you end up with a very nice flat top, and you can always eat the cake tops, or you can always make cake pops out of those. So you just want to do that with all of them. Cut the very domes off of your cupcake, and now you have nice 6 flat cupcakes to create your beautiful cupcake designs. So over here I have a bowl of buttercream, and as I mentioned earlier, I got this using some few drops of brown gel food coloring. And now I'm going to be taking my cupcake, and I'm just going to take a little bit of that buttercream using an icing spatula and kind of apply that buttercream on the top. Try to avoid going back and forth. You kind of want to just go in one motion just to prevent any of those crumbs from getting into your buttercream. So you want to go in one motion on the top of your cupcake with this buttercream. Fill in any of the gaps that you see, and once you're happy with the surface that you have, so if it's nice and smooth, so I'm just going to start cleaning up the sides of the cupcake liner. So the top is nice and smooth, and it's okay if it's not completely perfect because the flowers are going to be decorated on top. Then I'm just going to clean off the edges of the cupcake liner with some paper towel or tissue paper. And at this point, we're just going to repeat the same process with all of the cupcakes. So you just want to apply a little bit of buttercream on top and then clean off the sides. So once all 6 of your cupcakes have a nice smooth surface, and what we're going to do now is place these into the fridge so they're nice and set. So I'm going to start off by taking my brownish beige buttercream, and I'm going to take that little extra ring piece off from my coupler, and I'm going to take the Wilton tip number 104, which is this petal tip, and it has this narrow side on one side and a thicker side on the other. Then you want to take your coupler and twist it back in place. So I'm going to be using this coupler in all of my flowers and taking them off and putting them on, and I'm going to show you how important using a coupler really is to create beautiful variety of different types of flowers without having to stress over which design you're going to create. So first of all, because this cupcake buttercream on the top is nice and firm, you won't actually be ruining the top of your cupcake buttercream when creating your flowers. So we're going to start off by following somewhat in the center and going all the way around and then pulling down. So you want to apply pressure and then kind of go all the way around, bringing your petal back towards the center. So apply pressure, and you want that ruffly design. So the more pressure you're going to add, the more of those ruffles you're going to get. So you can see that once you've gone all the way around, I'm going to follow that same motion and kind of angle my piping tip a little bit more upwards so that I'm kind of creating a little bit more of a petal that's kind of coming outwards on an angle. So now I'm just going to take the burgundy shade buttercream, and I'm just going to, using the Wilton tip number 102, kind of create these smaller petals within that. So you can see it's a little bit smaller than the Wilton tip number 104. You just place that on just like I showed earlier, and then place the ring on top to tighten your piping tip in place. And now I'm just going to add some of those petals within those beige petals just to create this two-tone kind of ruffled flower. So you're just going to kind of fill that in wherever you want to, kind of creating this two-tone kind of look to your flower. So wherever I'm seeing a gap, I'm just trying to kind of add the burgundy shade petal within that. So I just want to mention again, you just want to kind of have fun with the process. Just add the petals wherever you feel like. Don't overthink the process. And once you're happy with how many petals you've added, so at this point, I'm going to add the center to my flower. So I've decided to go with this black shade. So you want to make sure, again, you just take the coupler off, and taking the open star tip number 18, I'm just going to carefully place that on top. So you can see it's an open star tip. Then you just want to take your ring and then cup that over your coupler and just tighten your piping tip in place. And then you're just going to kind of around the circle, apply pressure and then go up. And you want to just do that in the center. And then once you go all the way around, you just want to start overlapping, creating this small little circular dome in the center of your cupcake. And you end up with this beautiful fall colored ruffle designed floral cupcake. So in this video, I'm going to be putting the couplers on and off multiple times in my video just to show you the importance of them. So again, I'm just taking the coupler off of the white piping bag, and I'm going to be placing a Wilton tip number 81, and this is also a petal tip, perfect for creating a chrysanthemum. So you just want to add that ring on top and tighten your piping tip in place. And now again, as I mentioned earlier, my surface of my buttercream is nice and chilled, so that won't ruin my petals when I am decorating on the surface of this cupcake. So you just want to kind of pipe a little bit towards the inside of your buttercream and then kind of create this lift on the edge. So you just want to apply pressure and then kind of pull back and lift up. This is what's going to give you this nice little lift on the edge of your cupcake. Since I have shown this many times in my other videos, I have done it on a cupcake liner where that is kind of used as a support, but you can also do it with this flat kind of styled cupcake as well. Just make sure to kind of lift at the very end when you are creating your chrysanthemum. Because the buttercream is nice and medium to stiff range, you are able to kind of create that lift and the petals will stay in place. When you are creating a petal like a chrysanthemum, you want to make sure that the buttercream is not too soft, or you don't add too much buttercream into your piping bag, because that can actually cause your petals to kind of fall down. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for all of the constant love and support you guys give to me on my channel. It truly means a lot to me. I also receive a lot of comments saying I wish I could create flowers like yours, and I just want to let you guys know that you can. It just requires practice. Don't let perfectionism prevent you from even starting, and the more and more you're going to practice, you're going to notice that the better you're going to get. And in this video, that's why I really emphasize on couplers, because you'll notice how much you can switch around and play with different types of piping tips and different types of colors, and each cupcake will look completely unique and different, and you're going to notice that you're going to have so much more freedom with the different types of designs you create. So you can see that I finished creating my chrysanthemum flower. I usually kind of take my flower all the way to the center, but in this case I'm going to take my yellow brown buttercream, and you want to carefully take the ring off the top, and then you want to place a grass tip number 233, and then you want to place the ring back on and tighten your piping tip in place. So this is going to create the center part of my flower. So you just want to, what you want to do is you kind of want to apply pressure and then you want to lift up. And this is going to give you a beautiful kind of realistic look to the center of your flower. So you just want to apply pressure and then lift up. So you want to keep following that same motion a couple of times until you're happy with the center of your flower. And then you're going to end up with this beautiful chrysanthemum with this yellow center. So now that I've shown you how to create two flowers, now I'm going to move on to the next one. So I didn't realize that the video stopped recording. So on the left side, I created a rose using a Wilton tip number 104 with the brown yellow, and then with the tip number 81, I created chrysanthemum on the right. So there are videos that I have shared in the past that are similar to this, so I will leave that in the eye icon above. So now I'm just going to take my green buttercream shade that I've created with some green and brown gel food coloring, and I'm just going to take the ring off, and then I'm just going to place this leaf tip on top. So you just want to place that on top, and then you want to take your ring and just kind of place that on top and tighten that in place. And I'm just going to create some leaves to fill in the gaps. So when you are creating leaves, you want to hold that on an angle like a beak and kind of create this back and forth kind of wiggle motion and create your leaves. So I'm going to create green leaves on the other side as well. So I created kind of like this roundish shape, and then on top of that I'm just going to create a little leaf just to create some height to that leaf. So again, you just want to apply pressure and pull out, and you're going to end up with these beautiful leaves. Now say I'm just going to take this piping tip off from the green buttercream. So you just want to twist your ring off, and then you just want to place the ring back on. And then you're just going to place take your burgundy shade buttercream that I have over here. I'm just going to take the tip number 102 off from that. And then I'm just going to take my tip number 352, and it's okay if there is some of that green buttercream inside. That's perfectly fine because it will create kind of like this two-tone red and green flower kind of transitioning into our next color. So again, you want to follow that same motion. You want to hold your piping tip at an angle and create this back and forth kind of wiggle motion to create that realistic ruffled leaf design. So you just want to create a couple of those leaves, fill in any of the gaps that you see, and you can see that you end up with this beautiful kind of two floral with these two shaded leaves around your flower. So this is another cupcake design. Now I'm going to move on to my next cupcake design, and for this I'm going to take my Wilton tip number 104 off from my beigeish brown buttercream, and then you just want to take that ring and kind of place that back on just so that you make sure that your coupler stays in place with the actual ring. And then I'm just going to take my yellowish beige buttercream that I have, and I'm just going to take the ring off, take that grass tip off, and then I'm just going to take that same tip number 104 and place that on top. So it doesn't matter if that buttercream is still in there, it's just going to add this realistic two-tone shade to your rose. So I'm just going to kind of create this center dome, and this is going to create height to my rose. And then you just kind of want to create this small little spiral in around that little dome that you've created. Once you've created that, now we're going to start creating our petals. So what you want to do is on one end, you just want to apply pressure and then kind of pull down. You want to create about 3 of these petals in the center, and then you want to overlap between 2 of your petals. So you want to apply pressure, lift up, and then pull down, and you just want to keep turning your cupcake while you keep creating these petals. So again, apply pressure, pull up, and then kind of pull down. And you're going to just kind of build on your petals, kind of creating as many like 3, 5, 7 kind of petals all the way around your rose. So once you've created all of these petals all around your rose, at this point I'm just going to take my burgundy shade buttercream, and I'm just going to take my leaf tip off from that. And then I'm just going to take that Wilton tip number 104 that was on my yellow beige buttercream. So you just want to twist that off, and then you want to take your tip number 104 out of there, place the coupler ring back on. You just want to make sure that you add the rings back onto your couplers just so that you don't mix them around. Then you want to place that tip number 104 onto that burgundy shaded buttercream, and now we're just going to create our second rose next to that yellow buttercream rose that we created. So again, you want to create that small little dome again, and then you just again want to create a little bit of that spiral in the center, and then you want to create your rose by adding petals on top. So I like to create 1, 3, 5 kind of these odd numbered petals. So you can see that the tips of my petals have a little bit of that yellow, and that's because of the buttercream that was left in the previous piping tip, and that just creates a little bit more of a realistic look and kind of brings both of the flowers together. So that's why I mentioned that, you know, it's okay if there is some of that buttercream in your piping tip from beforehand. It just creates a more realistic look. So once I've created my beautiful rose, now I'm just going to take my brownish beige buttercream, and I created kind of like this little mount of buttercream on the side, and now I'm just going to take my Wilton tip number 21, and I'm just going to take my white buttercream and place that on top, and I'm just going to kind of cover that entire dome of buttercream with these little drop flowers. So you just want to apply a little bit of pressure, and then you just want to lift up, and you're going to create a bunch of these small little flowers in the corner of this little so this is kind of like 3 different types of flowers all on one cupcake. So you just want to kind of fill that dome up, and and wherever you see some of that beige buttercream, you just want to cover that up with your little drop flower. So again, just apply pressure and then lift up. Now I'm just going to take my black buttercream and I'm just going to take that piping tip off, and I'm going to take a Wilton tip number 3 and kind of place that on top of my coupler. You want to place the ring on top and just tighten your piping tip in place. Now I'm just going to take the tips of my little drop flowers and create a little dot of black buttercream in the center of them. So it just kind of creates this small little flower, so it looks like a bunch of little flowers that are connected together. So once you filled in all of the centers of your little drop flowers, then what we're going to do is we're going to kind of fill in the gaps of this triple flower bouquet with some of our leaves. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my green buttercream and I'm just going to place my leaf tip on top of this coupler. And it's okay again if there is some of that burgundy buttercream inside of your piping tip. You just want to place the coupler ring on top, and now we're going to get these two shaded leaves, so because there is some of that red buttercream inside. So again, you want to apply a little bit of pressure and then lift up, and you can see that the first few leaves were kind of red, and then the second ones were kind of like a mix of red and green, and then as you apply more pressure you end up with these completely green leaves. So you're getting a variety of 3 different shades of leaves with just using that one piping tip, where you're actually building on a previous color. So that's why I'm showing you how important adding couplers are and how much of a realistic look they give to your floral bouquets. So now moving on to my next floral cupcake design. So again, you want to take your coupler off, and in this video I kept showing you the couplers. I'm placing them on and off. So this particular tip actually had burgundy shaded of buttercream, so I just placed my piping tip under some hot water, and that's going to get rid of all of that buttercream in your piping tip right away, and then wash it with some soap, and then you can just reuse your piping tip instead of having multiple different types of piping tips. So for this one, I'm going to create this ruffled flower. So you apply a little bit of pressure, kind of create this little straight top, and then pull inward, so kind of creating kind of like a triangle shaped petal. So you just want to kind of pull towards the center, create a little square top, and then pull down. You want to do that all the way around while leaving a little bit of gap in between all of your petals. Now you're just going to overlap on these ruffles, so creating smaller ruffled petals, kind of filling in those gaps, and this is just going to give more of a ruffled 3-dimension look to your flower. So a little bit of pressure, kind of create that square, and then you want to pull towards the center, kind of creating a little bit of a triangular shape. So once you're happy with the amount of petals you've added, so now I'm going to take my yellowish brown buttercream and I'm going to apply a Wilton tip number 18, which is the small little drop flower piping tip, and I'm just kind of creating these flowers as I go. So I'm just trying to show you that you have to just play around with the different colors, you have to play around with the different tips, and you can do this by adding couplers on all of your piping bag. So again, I'm just kind of creating that drop flower on the rim around the circle, so I'm not going to create this all the way around. So you just want to get as creative as possible and kind of have fun with the process, and I'm showing you this so that you also don't overthink the process and kind of just enjoy whatever comes to your mind, play around with it. And you can also do this on parchment paper if you don't want to do this onto a cupcake. Just do it so that you actually become more confident with playing around with the different types of colors and the different types of piping tips, and just kind of coming up with different types of designs. And you'll notice that you're going to get more and more confident with your color choice, your piping tip combination, and just get better overall with your piping technique as well. So I squeezed out all of that yellow buttercream until the burgundy buttercream was showing through, and now I'm just going to create a drop flower in the center, apply pressure, and lift up until the center is completely filled. So now moving on to my next flower. So I'm going to start off by taking my white buttercream and I'm going to take my coupler off. And I'm going to add a Wilton tip number 102, which is also a petal tip. It's just slightly smaller than the tip number 104. So you just want to place that on top, and then you want to add the ring on top and just tighten that in place. And all of the flowers that I'm going to be creating on this cupcake are a little bit more of that flat style. So this is going to be a little small zinnia. So you want to apply a little bit of pressure and then kind of create this curve, and then you want to pull down, and you want to do this until you create a small little circle of these small small petals. Once you reach the end where you started, you want to start overlapping these petals. So again, apply pressure, go kind of create this curve and then pull down. And you'll notice that your second petals are going to be kind of lifted because of the previous petals. Once you've created petals all the way to around, you want to leave the center empty, and I'm just going to take my burgundy shade Buttercream. I'm going to take that piping tip off, and I'm going to place a grass tip on top of this. So again, just place that on top and then place the ring on top of it. So because I don't want the center to have that yellow buttercream, I'm just going to squeeze some of this buttercream out of there until I start seeing that red buttercream showing through. So I left it with some of that yellow buttercream with that red, and now I have this beautiful buttercream flower. So now for the next flower, it's going to be somewhat of like a sunflower design. So I'm just going to take that yellowish brown buttercream, take that coupler off, and then I'm going to take that leaf petal tip and I'm just going to place that on top. So again, I'm just placing that on top. I'm going to place the coupler on top to tighten that in place. And now I'm just going to create these small little petals. So what you're going to do is you're going to apply pressure and then pull out. So creating this small little thin leaf petal design. So you want to create this right in front of the zinnia flower. So go all the way around, apply pressure and pull up. Once you've created these petals, now wherever the gap is, you want to fill your gaps with the same petal. So apply pressure and you just pull upwards. And you're going to end up with this beautiful kind of sunflower looking design. So once you have this beautiful sunflower flower and you've created enough petals, then I'm just going to fill the center with some of that brown buttercream. So you just want to take your black buttercream and you want to create a drop flower using the Wilton tip number 21. So you just apply pressure and pull up. So I didn't have to change the coupler for that because that coupler was already on it. And now with the burgundy shade Buttercream, you just want to take that grass tip off from there and you're going to place the Wilton tip number 18 on there, and then you just want to place the ring on top. So the tip number 18 is a small open star tip. So we're going to create a little dome of little drop flowers in that little gap there. So you just want to apply pressure and kind of pull up and create somewhat of like this circle guide. And you just want to kind of keep applying more and more pressure until the entire little dome is filled with these drop flowers. So once you've created a bunch of these drop flowers and you're happy with how many drop flowers you've created, then we're going to take the brown beige buttercream and we're just going to take that Wilton tip number 104 off. And then we're going to apply a tip number 2 on top. So you just want to carefully place that on top, and then you want to take that little ring and twist that in place to make sure that the piping tip is nice and tight on your coupler. So now wherever the center of the drop flowers are, you just want to create a small little dot to create a center of your flower. So once you've done that to all of your drop flowers, you end up with this beautiful triple floral bouquet. So now I'm just going to create little fillers and leaves in the gaps. So I'm going to take my green buttercream and I'm just going to take that coupler off again. And then I'm just going to place a Wilton tip number 3 on top of this. And then you just want to place the ring on top of it just to tighten it in place again. And then you just want to create these small little buds. So you just want to apply a little bit of pressure and then you just want to kind of fill in that gap. So just apply a little bit of pressure and lift up to create this little small dot. So aside from this, I just wanted to say that if you guys are interested, I am creating online courses. And if you want to know when I launch those online courses, just sign up to my email list on my website, www.zibakeriz.com, to know when I launch those online courses. So now I'm just taking that white buttercream and I'm just going to place a Wilton tip number 2 on top of that, and then just put a coupler back on top of it to tighten it in place. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a small little dot in each of those green little buds. So these are like kind of going to create like a bud look to one of the corner of my floral bouquet. So just fill in the center of that green little dot with some of that white buttercream. So once you've created that little white bud inside of your green buttercream, then what we're going to do is we're going to kind of create filler leaves on the opposite side of the buttercream where you see that gap. So again, I'm just going to take my green buttercream, I'm just going to take that piping tip off, and I'm just going to place the leaf tip on top of it. So you just want to, again, hold it on an angle, create this back and forth motion to create that ruffled leaf effect. I'm going to add another one in the opposite gap as well. And now I'm just going to take that leaf tip off from my green buttercream, and I'm just going to place this leaf tip onto some of that black buttercream because I just want to create a little bit more of a fall rustic kind of look. So I'm just going to create some of these darker two-tone shade leaves. So I'm just going to take that dark brown black buttercream and I'm just going to place this leaf tip on top of that. So you just want to take that piping tip off, place the leaf piping tip on with the buttercream inside to create a two-tone shaded leaf. And again, you just want to hold your piping tip on an angle, create this back and forth motion to create that wiggle leaf effect. And you're going to end up with this beautiful two-toned ruffled leaf design. So this is pretty much how to create these beautiful floral cupcake bouquets. They're the perfect fall cupcakes that you can create for Thanksgiving or for any fall event or even fall weddings. But if there is anything that you can take away from this, it's being able to learn to use couplers and playing around with different types of colors and different types of piping tips to create beautiful types of flowers. If you guys found this video tutorial helpful, then definitely click on the video on the right to learn more beautiful buttercream floral designs, and subscribe to my channel if you aren't already, since I upload a new video each week. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you guys in my next one.